hook opening that grabs viewers immediately. The hospital room was silent except for the slow, uneven beeping of a heart monitor. Outside the window, the city lights flickered like distant stars, but inside the room, time seemed to be running out. On the bed lay Daniel Carter, a single father who had spent the last 8 years raising his little daughter alone. His body was weak, his breathing shallow, and the doctors had already said the words no parent ever wants to hear. There was nothing more they could do. But Daniel wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of something far worse. Who would take care of his daughter after he was gone? Late that night, when most of the hospital was asleep, Daniel called the young nurse who had been quietly caring for him for weeks. His voice trembled as he whispered his final request. "Please, before I go, I need you to promise me something." The nurse thought he was going to ask for medicine, or maybe to call a relative. But when she heard his wish, she froze. Because what he asked was something that would change both of their lives forever. And what happened after that, no one in that hospital could have ever imagined. Chapter 1: The Promise. Daniel Carter never expected life to turn out this way. 8 years earlier, he had been just another ordinary man with an ordinary life. He worked as a mechanic in a small garage, fixing cars during the day and coming home to his wife Emily and their newborn daughter, Lily. But everything changed in a single night. Emily died in a car accident while driving home from work. In one moment, Daniel lost the love of his life, and became both mother and father to a tiny baby who needed him more than ever. The first years were incredibly hard. Daniel had no experience raising a child alone. There were nights when Lily cried for hours, and Daniel sat on the kitchen floor holding her, whispering softly even when he felt completely lost. Money was always tight. He worked longer hours at the garage, often coming home exhausted with grease still on his hands. But no matter how tired he was, he always made time for Lily. He braided her hair before school. He packed her lunches. He read bedtime stories every single night. To Lily, her father wasn't just a parent. He was her entire world. But when Lily turned 8, Daniel started feeling something strange. At first it was small: fatigue, headaches, dizziness. He ignored it. Single parents didn't have the luxury of getting sick. But the symptoms grew worse. One morning he collapsed at work. At the hospital, the doctors ran test after test. The diagnosis came like a thunderbolt. An aggressive illness, already too advanced to treat. Daniel had months left, maybe less. His first thought wasn't about himself. It was about Lily. He tried to stay strong in front of her. When she visited the hospital after school, he smiled and joked, pretending everything was fine. But late at night, when the room was dark and quiet, Daniel stared at the ceiling with tears running silently down his face. He had no close relatives. No one who could take Lily. The thought haunted him. That's when he met Nurse Sarah. Sarah Mitchell was 28 years old, gentle and calm, with warm brown eyes that seemed to understand people without them saying a word. She was the one who brought Daniel his medicine every night. She noticed how he always asked about visiting hours. How he kept Lily's drawings taped to the wall beside his bed. One evening she found him staring at a crayon picture of a small house with 2 stick figures holding hands. "What's that?" she asked softly. Daniel smiled weakly. "That's me and Lily. She says it's our castle." From that day on, Sarah began spending a little extra time in his room. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just sat quietly. She learned about Lily's love for drawing, her messy braids, and how she believed her dad could fix absolutely anything. But one night, something felt different. Daniel's condition had gotten worse. His breathing was heavier. When Sarah came to check his vitals, he gently reached out and held her hand. "Sarah, I need to ask you something." She pulled a chair closer to the bed. "What is it?" His voice cracked. "I don't have anyone. No family, no one who can take care of Lily." Sarah felt her chest tighten. Daniel continued slowly. "She trusts you. She always says the nurse with the kind eyes is her dad's hero." He swallowed hard before finishing his sentence. "If something happens to me, will you promise to watch over her?" The room went completely silent. Sarah wasn't expecting that. It was more than a request. It was a father's final hope. And she didn't know what to say. Chapter 2: The Unbelievable Miracle. Sarah barely slept that night. Daniel's words echoed in her mind again and again. Will you promise to watch over her? She had always loved helping people, which was why she became a nurse. But this was something much bigger than a hospital duty. It was someone's life. A child's future. The next afternoon, Lily came to visit. She ran into the room with a bright smile and climbed carefully onto the chair beside her father's bed. Hi, Daddy. Daniel forced himself to smile. Hey, Princess. Sarah stood quietly in the corner, watching them. Lily pulled a folded piece of paper from her backpack. I made something for you. It was another drawing. This time there were 3 stick figures holding hands. Who's the third one? Daniel asked gently. Lily pointed toward Sarah. That's her. The nice nurse. Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. Lily looked at her with innocent curiosity. Daddy says you take good care of him. Thank you. In that moment, Sarah felt something shift inside her heart. Later that evening, she returned to Daniel's room. He looked weaker than before. But when he saw her, he searched her face for an answer. Sarah sat beside him. Her voice was soft, but steady. I promise. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Really? She nodded. If anything happens, Lily won't be alone. Relief washed over his face like a calm wave after a storm. For the first time in weeks, he closed his eyes peacefully. But life had one more surprise waiting. 2 weeks later, something strange happened. A specialist visiting the hospital reviewed Daniel's medical records. He noticed something unusual in the test results. More scans were ordered. More tests. Doctors began whispering in the hallway. Finally, Daniel was called into a meeting with the medical team. The lead doctor spoke slowly. There's been a mistake. Daniel stared at him. What do you mean? The doctor continued. The illness we diagnosed, you don't have it. Silence filled the room. Another doctor explained. You have a rare condition that mimics those symptoms, but it's treatable. Daniel couldn't speak. For weeks he had believed he was dying. And now, you're going to recover, the doctor said with a smile. Daniel broke down in tears. The first person he told was Sarah. When she heard the news, she laughed and cried at the same time. Weeks later, Daniel finally walked out of the hospital. Lily ran into his arms, hugging him tightly. And beside them stood Sarah. Daniel looked at her with gratitude. You kept your promise, he said softly. Sarah smiled. I didn't have to keep it. Then Lily grabbed both their hands and pulled them together. And in that moment, something beautiful began. Not just a story about survival, but a story about family. Because sometimes, when life feels like it's ending, it's actually just beginning. Final message. Even in our darkest moments, hope can appear when we least expect it. Kindness, promises, and love have a strange way of changing destinies. And sometimes, the miracle we're waiting for is already on its way.